40 40 347 4401 40 40. All right. Oh, man. Over the last little while, it's been a thing called Dear Summer. I'm going to play that track later on. But what Dear Summer has been about is when the snow melts, when it gets hot, when it gets crazy, all hell breaks loose. And it's been breaking loose from Brownsville having those 2 children killed by that psycho, stabbed them kids, and everybody went crazy. We glad we caught the guy. We shouldn't have been out in the first place. All the way up to Michael Brown and everybody in between as far as police and people relations. It's not just white people. It's not just black people. It's an assault going on, and people have no idea which way to turn. What have you thought about, what's been going on this summer as far as the violence in Chicago, as far as people getting killed by cops? What have you? I mean, where do we begin? Where do we end? What's happening here?
I mean, if you want to get real about it, it's like the shark attacks. I remember a year, I don't know what year it was now, but it was like one year it was like shark attacks every week. And with the reason why the shark attacks was happening every week, because it was always happening. And what happened was the news decided to cover them. So all of a sudden it seemed like sharks was everywhere. My point is that the violence has been, and for many years, been consistent in Chicago. The violence has been consistent in Brooklyn, Compton. I don't care if you name a hood, any Martin Luther, you know what I'm saying? The violence has been consistent. This is not new business. It's unfinished business that's just getting exacerbated by the media. What really is going on is that, listen, man, there's a breakdown in communication and understanding between the people that are impoverished and the people who are on top, and that the people who are on top, listen, they good, man. It's like you in your warm home and, you know what I'm saying, eating well. You don't really pay attention all the time to what's going on outside of those walls because life is good where you at. You know what I'm saying? If you're sitting on the tropics on the beach, you ain't worrying about a snowstorm somewhere in the Midwest. You're only going to say, oh, look, it's nice where I'm at. You look at your own environment. And what happens is that this disconnect is getting broader, and that people don't even understand that, it was black and white. It's not going to be black and white. It's going to be rich and poor. That's the new, I guess, the future of where America's going at this point. The economic divide is where people are going to suffer the most and where there's going to be some real problems. That's why a lot of people understand the shootings of a Mike Brown or the choking of an Eric Gardner. Yeah, you don't have to see it as an issue for humanity, which it really is. But you're going to see in the near future where the rich and the poor, the divide's going to get brought up, the middle class will go further away. And what's going to happen is that these tragedies are going to continue to get worse because people understand they'll be targeted as well. Anybody who's now on the right side of this situation, you'll be a target. And so when you look at these circumstances that are going on in a lot of the ghettos, it's just that, listen, man, it's been always happening and nobody's been addressing it. Social media is giving a voice to the everyday guys, made everybody a commentator. You know what I'm saying? Everybody is a commentator on life. And if you got a cell phone, you're a reporter. You know what I mean? As long as you got a camera with you everywhere you go, we are picking up stuff that was never acknowledged before, because who was walking around with a video camera everywhere they went? You know what I mean? Who would have been there with a video camera when Eric Gardner got choked out? Who would have been there? So it's like with everybody becoming the news now, we all getting the word out, and that things go viral. It's just more obvious than it was before. There's not any necessarily any increase. It's just more obvious, and that, okay, so now we know it. What are we going to do about it? How do you diffuse the situation that's been going on since, you know what I'm saying, for the last 40 years and more? Where these are the crack babies that are growing up. These are the crack babies were born to the crackheads. The crackheads was babies of the heroin addicts in the 60s and the 70s. So these things have been continuing on and on and on, and the breakdown of family is where the root of the big problems are. And it's like we have to start building, like you just said a little while ago about the respect. Think about it like this, man. If your mother don't respect herself, why would the child? And so, you know, when your mom's running around and she's screaming the same lyrics to songs you screaming, and the songs are ridiculous and out of hand, then you're going to be more empowered to do it yourself. Because my mother never sang, run around so much she was a bad bitch. Never happened. You know what I'm saying? But that's what these women are doing nowadays. So grandmas is in their 30s. You know what I'm saying? Is that the substance of what made people or family, we losing that substance. And that's where the problems are.
I'm going to share a story that, I shared in certain circles. I'm going to see if I can't make sure everybody understand it on this particular show. Back when I was 13, I had a certain craziness happen. I'll never forget it. I was coming out of school one day, and I'm gonna make it short. I was chased down by a group of dudes. They beat me up. They tried to stick me for a Tommy Hilfiger jacket that my uncle had gave me, and they pretty much had me dead to rights. So I saw this gun, and then all of a sudden, as I closed my eyes, I was getting ready to give up the gun. The next thing I know, everybody's gone. What I find out is that the police are actually down the block, and you put one and one together. These guys see that cop car and they leave. Had that cop not have been around, we don't have a show tonight. So I'm not going to be at this. So I'm going to say to a lot of people that are probably going to listen to this, probably don't feel this way because they've been through a certain episode of their own with the cops, against the cops, for the cops, whatever the case may be. We have to make sure everybody understands there are good and there are bad. I understand there's some bad cops making it hard for the good cops. I understand it's because of these bad cops. There's a lot of distrust between our people, rich or poor, black and white, and Latino. But the one thing I can't stress enough, you got to understand that you're gonna need them one of these days, because our mentality in the hood is not anything that anybody's fixing. What is this idea? I hope you can touch on this. What is this idea of, I understand people have their prejudices against the shield, but what do you think needs to happen amongst our people in order to start trusting them and, more importantly, start standing up for ourselves?
I mean, I guess I'll look at it like this, man. I mean, when it comes down to police, look, man, you got a lot of different kinds of cops. I got a lot of cops that are friends and good people. I don't think that they do the things that I've seen on TV. You know, these other cops, you know, I don't follow them for work, so who knows, but I think they're good people. My point is that there's plenty of good cops, man. And like anything else, it's like black people. There's not one kind of black person. There's good and bad, you know, black people. And when people see black people, they group us into one ideology and say we're all this way or that way. And the same thing for any group. You can't pick any group of diverse people and say they're all the same. The problem or the flaw within the police department, which causes a divide with the community, is that the police department, even when they have bad apples in the bunch, they don't necessarily acknowledge that. And so what it does is that if you take the side of a bad guy, even if you're a good guy, it kind of paints your image. It makes you just as bad as the bad guy in the eyes of the people who feel like they're being oppressed or abused, and rightfully so, because you my brother, and if you're wrong and I'm defending you, then I know when the beef comes, we both got to fight. And so people are going to group me and my brother together. You punch my brother, you punch me. We fight together. It's not, you know what I'm saying? So it's the same mentality with them, but it just doesn't translate the same because even though it's a brotherhood, even though it's a fraternity of thought and patterns, it's like the people have hired you to protect and serve. They call you a peace officer. You're supposed to carry a peacemaker. So you protect and serve and peacemaker, peace officer, yet someone ends up dead who didn't do anything to deserve it. So it's very difficult to, I guess, to greet that mentality warmly. And I try to, that's why, like I said, I wrote a post earlier today and I was trying to tell people, I said, look, because somebody, people put up things like, oh, I support the police, and it's subtle racism, it's subtle defense of criminal acts. And I said, listen, I hate that some people feel that siding with justice means that you're siding against the police. There are good police as well as bad ones. I support anyone who's willing to put their life on the line for the safety of others. And no check will ever repay that to anybody. But the killing of innocent people, no sorry will ever repay that either. Okay, we got to restore the balance. I said, not by denial, but by putting criminals on trial, whether in uniform or not. And all that means is that let a criminal be seen for what he is. If my brother went out and murdered 10 people, I'm not going to justify that. I'm not going to sit back and be like, well, he's my brother, he's a good dude. Yo, you killing people, you not that good a dude. You know what I'm saying? So I can't sit and justify every negative attribute that a family member has just because they're family. You have to acknowledge the ills in your family so that you can either get that person the help they need or defend whoever needs to be defended against that person, because guess what? We all are family when it comes to humanity. And the fact that we separate this thing on black and white, on rich and poor, on, all these different variables that make us who we are, that's just the surface of who we are. In the inside, we're just people. So stop looking at it like us or them. Stop looking at it like, there's wrong and there's right. There's wrong and right in everybody, and we need to be able to point that out in the individual and not by the group. And if we could point out the individual wrongs in police departments and they can actually point out the individual wrongs in the black community, we wouldn't have this problem because we would be just dealing with the people who are doing right and doing wrong. And that's what's missing. That's what the divide is.
Yeah, it's almost taboo to talk about certain people, like the whole stop snitching thing. It's kind of crazy how we could ask for the person who killed Michael Brown, or we should ask, even when we know who was the one that choked out Eric Gardner, even when we know who kept gunning down people in Chicago, or Romelli Graham, as they had their press conference. It's hard to ask anybody to do their job as far as serving up who did what in either community, in the police community, in the black community, in the white community, when it's our turn to step up and say who did this, and no one steps forward. Do you think police are acting the way they act because civilians act the way they act? With their stop snitching, you don't turn your people in. You're not supposed to do this. You're not supposed to do that.
Stop snitching, and a lot of people understand what the non-snitch policy is being used in the hood. What the non-snitch policy was about was me and you together. We go out and commit a crime. All right, we go rob some people. After we robbed some people, I got caught, you went home. I'm not supposed to then say, go pick up Royce. He was in it with me. And the reason is that if you did the crime together, there was a unspoken rule that says you don't turn in the guy that you did dirt with because you both did dirt together. So if you got caught, then you just took the time and you ate it. What people have taken that into is translating into crimes that they have nothing to do with. And that you're protecting people who are doing horrific acts. If somebody rapes somebody in the building, you need to tell. If somebody kills somebody, you need to talk about it, because the truth is that it could be you next, A. B, that person is taking a life.